So the goal of the Disappearing Stick project is to create a composite image, or a image that's made out of multiple photos that are layered on top of each other. So the end goal is to have something that looks something like this. We should have a photo of the background and a photo of your subject with either a stick to kind of separate things. So it looks like we're disappearing behind sticks. You could use it in multiple different ways, maybe multiple sticks to create a negative space in the middle, or even this really cool like hood jacket idea, anything that creates an enclosed space, or even a photo frame. So the end goal is to get this composite image that we'll edit in Photoshop with the two photos. So once you have a photo of your background and a photo of your subject, and you have lots to choose from, you've taken lots of photos from different locations, different ideas, then we want to narrow that down to our best idea, and we're going to take that into Photoshop. So once you have all your photos on your computer and you have looked through and seen which ones you like the best, we want to make sure we have one of our subject with any kind of stick or any of the other ideas, and one of the background, and we want to make sure that those are exactly lined up. So I'm not seeing any differences in mine here in the background, nothing shifting other than the fact that I'm not in this photo and I am in this photo. So either using Bridge or Finder, once you look through and find which ones you want, we're going to go ahead and open that in Photoshop. So I'm going to use Bridge here, and I'm going to double click on this one here. And I'm going to go back to Bridge and double click on this one. So I have both of those open in Photoshop. And so I have my two tabs here. You can always click and drag them from Finder as well. Just make sure that you're clicking and dragging them up to this tab area. So I'm just going to double check one more time. They're all lined up. Okay, that's looking good. So I'm going to go to my main image here that has my subject, and I'm going to select everything of this photo. So I'm going to do Command A, and that selects everything. So I have the little dotted lines around it. It's the whole thing selected. Then I want to copy it so I can paste it on top of the other photo. So I'm going to copy by doing Command C, or you can always go up to Edit and Copy. And then I'm going to go over to my other tab of my other photo here, and I'm going to paste it over the top. And so that is Command V, or Edit and Paste. So now I have two layers here. They are looking pretty lined up. I'm just going to, over here in my layers, turn down the opacity a little bit just to double check that everything's lined up. So if anything at this point looks blurry, if anything's looking kind of blurry like this, it means things aren't quite lining up. So you can select the Move tool and move things around until it's looking lined up or no longer blurry. If for some reason maybe the tripod shifted and the photo is a little crooked, or one of them's crooked compared to the other, you can always transform or Command T. That's also under Edit and Free Transform. And if it was crooked, you could, let's see, did I do Command T? There we go. So now we have the boxes here, so you can always resize something. We're not going to really need that though. If you take your cursor and go just past the corner there, it has these curved arrows, and that will let you rotate the photo. So if one photo is a little crooked or something, or not quite lined up that way, then you can turn it and rotate it and make it so that it is lined up. But mine is already pretty lined up. Everything's looking good. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that opacity back up to 100%. Oops. I want to make sure that's going up to 100%. There we go. So the other thing you also want to check is that both photos have a similar exposure or brightness. So it's looking pretty similar here, other than the fact that I'm creating a shadow in one of them and not in the other, but that's not super noticeable. But if you realize that one layer is a lot brighter than the other, you want to select that layer and go up to Image and Adjustments. And you can use brightness contrast to adjust the brightness. So if one was really bright or dark, you just want to make sure that they are fairly similar. But mine are looking pretty similar. If they are both really dark or both of them are really light and you want to make any adjustments to them, you want to do the same things to both layers. So if I am going to decide that I want this maybe a little more saturated, I want the colors a little more exaggerated, then if I go up, let's say 3 on the saturation on this layer, I want to do the exact same thing to the other layers so that they're the same. So then on the saturation on this layer, I'm going to go to 3. So now they should be the same. And you can use these little eyeballs to double check that they are the same by turning layers on and off. So now that everything is the same, it's all lined up, it's ready to go, what we need to do is create something called a layer mask. And that's going to let us take away parts of the top layer to show the background layer through that. So you want to have the top layer selected, the one that has your subject, and then click on this little button down here in the layers panel, and that is to add a layer mask. It's the one that looks like a circle inside a rectangle. And when I do that, it adds this little white square next to my layer that I had selected. And so this is a white mask that is on top of this layer that we're seeing here. And anything you paint black on this will kind of cut out a hole in this top layer. So what we need to do is go to the brush tool, this one right here, and we need to select black as our color. So down in the bottom left here, these are our colors. If we click on any of these squares, you can select different colors. So you can select black down here, or we might need white later. So you can also click this little double arrow here, and that will switch those. So whatever is on top is the color that we have currently selected. So I have black selected down here. I have my brush tool, and so now I can change the size of the brush. I'm gonna put it probably about that size for now. And for now, I'm gonna turn down the hardness on the brush all the way. And if I just start painting on this layer mask, then it will start to take things out. So we can see over on the little mask here, anywhere where there's black is something that's cutting a hole essentially in this top layer so that it shows the background layer through it. So I'm just going to go paint that on, take out my legs here, and I'm going to zoom in so that I can get pretty detailed. And you can tell I'm using a soft edge brush because it's really gradual here. So that's fine for this area, but then when I get real close to the edge of the stick or the broom handle here that I was using as a stick, I'm going to want the hardness of the brush to be turned up. So I'm going to have that turned up to 100%. I'm going to use the bracket keys on the keyboard to make the brush a little smaller so I can get a little more precise. And now you can see that hard edge to that brush is really creating those distinct edges. So that is what I'm going to want when I get up closer to my hand here and the broom handle. So then I want to zoom in even closer. The more you zoom in and the smaller the brush size you use, the more detailed and precise it's going to be. And then when you zoom out, it'll look really nice. So I'm going to use a smaller brush here, and I'm going to get real close to the broom handle. And the great thing about using layer masks instead of just an eraser tool is that if you accidentally take out something that you don't want to, you can always switch the colors over here, select white, and anything you paint on white will bring it back. So since our layer mask is white, anything black will take things away and kind of cut that hole through the top layer to show the background layer, and anything painted white will show that top layer. So if you ever take out something that you don't want, you can always go back and fix that without having to go back in your history or undoing anything. Maybe zoom in a little more. I want to get nice and precise with my lines here. So then when I zoom out, it'll look nice and even, and it'll have that effect of looking realistic. We're kind of creating a magic trick with Photoshop. So we want it to look realistic. And especially around any area where there might be your subject's hand holding the stick, or in this case, the broom handle. You want to get nice and detailed with it. So the smaller the brush size, and the closer you zoom in, the more detailed it's going to look. And let's see, it looks like this is my sleeve. I think I'm going to keep the sleeve there just because it kind of goes with the hand. But I'm going to take out the rest of that. Maybe even that out a little bit. And make sure all the brush strokes against the edge of everything are nice and even. Maybe I want to bring back a little more of that sleeve. I think I took out a little too much. So I'm going on with the white, switching it to black again to take things out. Maybe a little bit closer on the hand here. I can still see part of my jacket on the hand. Okay, so let's zoom out. I'm going to Command 0 to full screen, and that's looking pretty good. Take a quick little check around here, maybe a little more on the broom with the black to take out any extra from here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So now I have my top layer is just me disappearing behind the stick, and the background layer is the background. So what I want to do at this point is I want to save this twice. I want to save it as a Photoshop document. So I have this document with the mask if I want to change anything later. If I maybe want to go in and do something different with it, then I don't have to start from the beginning. I already have all these layers and all that information if I save it as a Photoshop document. So I'm going to go ahead and go to File and Save As to save it as a Photoshop document. If this pops up, you can just click Don't Show Again and you won't have to keep clicking on this. But I'm going to say Save on your computer. And I already had a folder that I had everything in on the computer called Disappearing Stick. That's where I got the photo from. It's already set to Photoshop document since I have multiple layers here. So I'm going to rename this so I know what it is. I'm going to call it Disappearing. I'll just call it Disappearing. And I'm going to click Save. And now if I go back to Bridge or Finder, then I will see that I have a PSD or a Photoshop document there, and then I still have my originals. But to turn this in on Schoology, we want to save it as a JPEG as well. So we're going to say for that one, we're going to say File, Save a Copy. Save on your computer, And then we're just going to change the format here from Photoshop to JPEG. So just the regular plain JPEG. Since we saved it as a copy, it's going to have copy in there. That's fine. And then click Save. And OK. So now if I look at this, I have my originals here. And then I have the JPEG and the Photoshop document. So what we want to be turning in is the JPEG. The Photoshop document is just for your own use. And then, along with your originals, you want to make sure that your edited versions are getting backed up to Google Drive as well. So you just want to click and drag those into a folder on your Google Drive.